I'm Nicola Talent, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com.
St. Patrick's Institution for Young Men. Veteran of the system I was at this stage, worse than the joy, that kip. We were after being to college, and this was like going back to junior school. Cell, 4 wet walls, a sink of Jackson, a little radio. It was much colder too. Wafer thin little mattress. Not a mattress, it's a fucking Tato crisp. Look, the guards can look at you doing a shite in here. That's not right. I had 3 mice in my cell at one time. I named them and all I did. My only mates, and they weren't fucking blind. They knew exactly where my fucking stash was. Visiting box all over again, you can hardly hear the person. I can't hear good anyway, so it was like meeting me man, a fishbowl, someone sitting right beside you, listening to your ma telling you she loves you. It's not right. No, I'm not moaning. It was what it was. You get on with it. They closed that kip down. What does that tell you? We are like animals in Derby, where they lock you in cages outside and then more cages inside. And some of them same lads, if given a chance, could be millionaires, given an education. Sure, I didn't even know what an education was. I'll tell you what our education was. The red brick slaughterhouse. And it lived up to the bloody name. I tell you that. I'm sitting in class one day and the teacher clatters one of the young fellas. A friend of mine, he runs out. Man passes him by on the street. Man is fuming, sees him blood all over him. The man was his father. So he goes into the classroom, hits the teacher, clatter, knocks them out. We're all dancing around. We thought it was very funny, you know. The teacher was a woman. That was our parent-teacher meeting.
So what do you think of that? That was Rex Ryan in character as the monk. I caught up with him this week. He was doing some rehearsals and he went into the mode.
Yeah, it's quite eerie actually, isn't it? He really does inhabit him. And obviously from having talked to Rex, you know, he's definitely not like that in real life. Like, you know, he doesn't sound like Gerry Hutch at all.
Oh, not at all.
No.
Very mild-mannered, gentle fella. And then you have this
kind of
character. Yeah. But so I actually saw the play when it was on the Glass Mask Theatre when Rex put it on initially. And of course, it's coming to the Ambassador for a week-long run from February this 16th.
In February, yeah.
And it is incredible because the play is set as Gerry Hutch sits in his cell waiting for Judgment Day, okay? And a brilliant artistic way of presenting the story about him, because it allows you, you know, as he's sitting there contemplating what's going to happen, you know, he's remembering his past life. He's remembering sort of what brought him to that prison cell and all that's gone on. So it's, you know, you're with Gerry Hutch. I found that at times you had empathy for him, you know, especially when he's talking about, he's going back to his childhood and things that happened there. And sometimes when you were, you know, feeling that empathy, the character and Rex playing it almost growls at you and brings you back to this sort of, you get a fright, you go, oh my God. So it kind of brings you back to reality that here in front of me is this individual who didn't get to where he got for being...
Through his true charm alone.
Exactly.
Put it that way.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I was talking to Rex just about the, you know, what is it about the monk that has seen this play get into the Ambassador Theatre, you know, that's going to see crowds arrive every night to like, it's not everyone that ends up on the stage. It's not every story. It's not every character.
No, it's not every character. I mean, and of course, it's not unheard of that people involved in organised crime would, you know, make good drama. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously the real life stories of mafia figures in the US have been the most popular, most famous films in the history of American cinema, right back to the 1920s. So there is an anti-hero thing always, and it's very, very strong in Irish culture, isn't it? Like, we are a kind of a culture that embraces
a little bit of law breaking.
And more than a little bit, really. I mean, if you go over to, I remember going to Germany, living in Germany when I was a teenager, just for the summer, and seeing people waiting for the Green Man before they cross the road.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Like, our culture is a bit, because of our colonial history and that. But you're right, like, the difference is, the unusual bit about Gerry Hutch is that this isn't a mafia guy who was in the 80s, who's done his time, and has turned to Jesus and, renounced his ways and is doing a speaking tour. Gerry Hutch is much more of an active player.
And I mean, look at the photograph from our own paper this weekend. What a photograph. It speaks volumes, because here you have the real Gerry Hutch, the monk, and he has arrived at the Ambassador Theatre.
Yeah.
He's met with Rex Ryan.
Yeah.
He's been brought in, I think, to be shown the theatre and explained what the plan is for the play. I've no idea whether he's going to be even in the country, by the way, when the play gets going. But nonetheless, Rex had, I think he spoke to you about how he had, communicated with Gerry. He was going to be playing the role of him. He wanted to get a sense of him and pick up all the nuances. And
even Rex's own background, the fact that Rex comes from, his father was one of the most famous people in the country, and that they both live together. Like, it just shows you Dublin's a small city, isn't it?
Dublin's a small city, but and here the two of them are outside the Ambassador, and there's the poster beside them of the monk. And of course, the headline, The Monks, was a pretty classy one, I have to say. And they are, and like, it's funny because obviously they're not in any way, shape or form related, but Rex does have a look of the young monk to him, doesn't he?
He does have a look, yeah. He has that colouring, and of course, like, with the Hutch colouring is really strong, isn't it? The sort of dark hair and
black almost, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as we live in Talbot Street, and you can almost spot a Hutch from, can't you? Like, you
can, there's
have a sort of distinct look. But yeah, you're right, like, and so the Rex Ryan obviously has done a few interviews over the time, and he's done a few relatively combative interviews, and he was on Crime World and we discussed it as well. Like, it is controversial. But it's also it's
controversial, but I think that it's considered, and I think when you see it, it is considered, because it's not a glorification or a glamorization. It's actually a piece of art that's making you consider.
And of course, we got accused of the same thing by having Gerry Hutch sitting, feet away, where the same thing was also thrown at us about being glamorized.
You always do that, like it's the Gerry Hutch chair.
Well, it is kind of, it's either the Gerry Hutch or the Ema Rabbit chair. And I think Gerry Hutch was there first. But so that is obviously thrown at him, and he discussed it. He actually said, "Well, it's a bit easier for me because it is a piece of art, and I am obviously writing it from the perspective of Gerry Hutch, so he can get away with it a bit more." Is actually how he said about it.
Yeah,
but there will be people. It will anger some people. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And you are right. Like, what is it about Gerry Hutch that allows him only 1 year on or whatever from a very high-profile murder trial, to stand for election then, and now to be the subject of a play.
And he still has his troubles in Spain, of course. He was arrested before, in between,
and his troubles here.
And his troubles here, I was going to come on to them, but he was. There was kind of rumours, it was coming out that he might be thinking of running for general election. Of course, it was in October of 2024. And the next thing he goes, there's big news in Lanzarote. He's been arrested. There's been raids and he's before the courts and he's in jail.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's the end of that. And of course, he then gets bail, gets out and comes home more determined than ever to stand for election, because he believes, and I think he sort of spoke to us about that he didn't really think that it was all he thought it was an effort really by the state to shut him down and to not allow him run. So he got his bail on the basis that he was coming back to do that. He did extremely well in that election. But those charges are still hanging there.
Yeah.
The Spanish system is different, but he is still essentially before a magistrate in relation to that, and not yet charged, but being investigated.
Yeah, but I think it's progressed to the next stage.
He has been charged, has he?
No, I don't, he hasn't been charged, but it's progressed to the point at which he might be charged.
Oh, yeah,
if you know what I mean. Like,
and of course, back here, he is been hit with a CAB bill, a second Criminal Assets Bureau bill, which relates to the years, I think, up to
2012, is it, from 2006. So it's kind of that before he moved to Spain, when he was, he ran a business, a Hummer, he was renting a Hummer. So he had certainly a legitimate registered business, and it seems to be the CAB bill, as far as we can hear, is related to that period of time when obviously he had been suspected of being involved in these bank raids, was never charged, but is routinely linked to them. So this would be in the aftermath of that, when he was certainly being, at that point, described as having been retired from crime, routinely in the papers,
But, what's extraordinary about him, and, the idea that there's a play called Just the Monk and, posters up all around Dublin is extraordinary itself. But I do know that people are now going on holidays to Lanzarote and making it their mission to find him and to do a selfie with him.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's this joke that I know somebody who caught up with him in some pub or something and asked him to do a selfie, and he says this joke, are you revoluting or is it cash? As if he's charging them for the photograph. People are doing that. It's like he is, there's a celebrity status to him that others don't.
Well, it's not just a celebrity as well, because John Gilligan, for example, would be very well known. Well
known, but people aren't going to go and ask him for selfies.
No. But so there is something different. It's not just solely celebrity.
Yeah.
There's some sort of, and obviously John Gilligan, we've seen all the comedians do TikTok, some of them brilliant, with Gerry Hutch, impersonating Gerry Hutch. I mean, nobody's going to do that with Daniel Kinahan, are they?
I doubt it.
No. But, if you did, it wouldn't be funny, I suppose.
Yeah.
So there's something about him that people view him differently.
They can They can connect to him, or they can with him, or they...
Well, this is why you have your own podcast, because you meant to give the answers to what is the difference. Well, I think there's a number of things, right? The first thing is that Irish people do like anti-heroes. He's certainly, in the public mind, he's associated with this ordinary, decent type of crime. Rightly or wrongly, he's associated with bank robberies, which maybe not everybody, but some people certainly feel are victimless crimes in effect. He's also seen as being authentic, and seen as having lost a lot of his family, which is a fact in that feud. And also we're in a period of time in Ireland and in the world where people with imperfect pasts are much, look, you have Donald Trump, you have Boris Johnson, but you also have people on the left, not just on the right, being elected. And we have a sort of a different attitude to people with complex pasts, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, what is it that holds it for him? It's he always pushed a narrative himself that he had nothing to do with drugs, etc. And, I think that was shattered with the next generation of Hutches, with their involvement with the Kinahan organised crime group. Gerry Hutch was right in there in upper management of that cartel, right?
Totally. That doesn't necessarily mean that Gerard is, But,
oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not saying that. But, I mean, if that was shattered, should that be shattered? Would he still hold, is there a Trump-esque that he can do whatever he wants? I mean, the tide would...
Well, I mean, Trump gets away with a lot because of his personal charm, and he is funny, like whether you like him or not. So that allows him to get away with a lot. And we're in a
I
period
can't believe we're talking about Donald Trump.
Let's
podcast. And Rex Ryan has been thrown into the middle of it.
Well, look, but what I'm saying is, right, we are in a time where if you go back to the 50s or the 60s, you had these institutions in Ireland and they were publicly moral and people looked to them as being, an example. So politicians were expected to be, married with kids and live these perfect lives. We had a church, we had all of these institutions in the state. Now we're at a time in the world where people, particularly the people who voted for Gerry Hutch, don't believe in those institutions and believe they are corrupt and weighted against them. And he's then, Gerry Hutch, when people say, well, he's involved in this and he's involved in that, well, they look at the guards or they look at the government and say, oh, well, sure, he's robbed a few banks, but sure, you're robbing the public every day.
Exactly.
And you have a political establishment that hear that and think, people are just saying that and they're being silly. But the people who voted for Gerry Hutch believe that.
They do.
It's the political establishment can't understand that they actually believe it.
And I can tell you, they're going to have another dose of it because Gerry Hutch is absolutely 100% going to run for the by-election.
And people will, as soon as he, publicly, whatever, declares or whatever, people will put it up and say, there'll be comments. I can already predict the comment.
Yeah.
There's already worse gangsters in the Dáil, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the people who are sitting in the Dáil think, that's just somebody commenting on Facebook. But the people who are writing that believe that. And that is where the disconnect is. So you had, obviously, when the Monk did well in the general election, you had people on RTE not just shocked or not just disgusted, but shocked as well, because they really couldn't understand it. But they can't understand what people are actually, they're telling them why they voted. They think you're worse than Gerry Hutch.
Yeah.
And so he will do well. I don't think he'll get elected.
It's the year is really phenomenal with everything coming together in a way because and we have produced a really good series, by the way, on the Regency, which is going to be on the crimeworld.com website. It's subscriber only. So if anybody wants to listen to it, I'm afraid you're going to have to. It's a 6-part, but it's a really good deep dive into exactly what happened and that moment that changed Gangland forever. Because it's the 10th anniversary of the Regency. It is 10 years since that moment in time, since the murder of David Byrne, since that spectacular, as it was called, in the Regency. Here you have 10 years on. People say what a difference time makes. You have Gerry Hutch, who's lost family and friends, and whose family and the Hutch grouping came under attack from the Kinahans in the aftermath of the Regency, and he went into the ether. He went missing for a long time. Then he's tried with the murder. He's acquitted, and here he is, 10 years on, after all of that has gone on, standing for election, and there's a play called The Monk happening, all at the same time. Now, all in the same month,
And if you think about the Regency, which we obviously go back, it's over 6 parts, but that was, we're talking about a piece of drama, the play, The Monk, but that was a deliberate piece of drama. So there were, I'm sure I've never, plotted a murder, but there probably would have been other ways to try and kill Daniel Kinahan. There might have been they might have been able to figure out where he was staying or not. But everything about the Regency was set up to include a bit of drama, a spectacle. It's not incidental. No. I don't think it's an accident that they had the uniforms, they had the AK-47s, there was a guy dressed in drag. I mean, even that, if you think about it, was that necessary? And
the mechanisms of it, the fact that the guy dressed in drag and Kevin Flatcap Murray, who'd later die, but having been identified as the guy who'd stayed over the night in the hotel, he'd had his pints, he'd gone up to his room, and the two were supposed to be posing as a couple in that weigh-in. And of course, they fired shots, and we go into all of this in the series, The Regency, but they fired the shots, the crowd start to flee, they make for the door, and in come TAC 1, TAC 2 and TAC 3, the men dressed as
ERU officers,
but holding Kalashnikov rifles. I mean, it is movie style stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not an accident. I mean, they've chosen to do this at the moment where there's absolutely guaranteed to be cameras. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
And also at a moment that is, you know, Daniel Kinahan, certainly in Ireland, is at the very top of his career here.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to turn his back on this country in the aftermath of it also.
Yes.
And doesn't return. But apart from the funeral of David Byrne, I don't think he was back here again after that. I mean, he not only had to sort of turn his back on Ireland and his, you know, childhood friends and whoever relatives he had left, unless they came to visit him in Dubai, but he also had to do that in Spain. So everything did change and it was so dramatic.
The drama is not incidental. So the Hutch organised crime gang, they didn't just set out to kill Daniel Kinahan. I mean, theoretically, they could have stopped the car or something, but they chose to create what the IRA, of course, used to call it a spectacular, where you're not, you know, and this is, I suppose, some of the things that you have to understand in reporting on organised crime. People say you glamorise it or you're making a big deal of it and all of that, but they also know the power of those displays.
Yeah.
So we had, and the Regency brought us a few dramatic displays. Firstly, obviously, the shooting itself, which was designed to look like a film. Then you had the spectacular funeral of David Byrne, which was designed to look like almost the funeral of a you know, a general shot dead in a war or a mafia don. So you had a battle of the spectacles almost. And so, you know, it's probably no surprise that 10 years on, the drama lives on in obviously less violent form in the Ambassador Theatre.
Exactly. Anyway, well, look, anybody who wants to listen to that series, The Regency, it is going to be broadcast, published tomorrow on the crimeworld.com website.
Yeah.
This week, of course, is the 10th anniversary of The Regency, the 5th of February. Hard to believe a full decade has gone on since then. It feels like yesterday, you know. And of course, the 16th of February, I think, is the opening night of The Monk at the Ambassador. And I have to say, I'm looking forward to seeing what you think of it, because I did see it, and maybe we'll just finish with a last little bit of Rex Ryan being a character.
I was caught. I done lots of crimes. Some of them I got away with.
Now, a job like that is no different to a movie. Do you understand? Same ingredients. Rehearse, plan, repeat. Don't just have plan B. You had to have plan C, D, E, F, G, and the fucking rest. Plan fucking Z. Do you think I wanted this? But as I said, lads, I wasn't there.
Have you checked out our new website, crimeworld.com, where you'll find ad-free exclusive content, including our new series, The Science of Fear, about the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. Subscribers can listen to all 9 parts, but for those of you not yet signed up, here's an extract from part 1. It's July 25th. Ipswich Crown Court. 3 of Ireland's most notorious criminals flicker onto the courtroom screens from prisons across England. Thomas Bomber Kavanagh appears on Zoom from Belmarsh Prison, looking surprisingly tanned and trim in a dark grey t-shirt. Beside him on the screen, his lieutenants Gary Flash Vickery and Daniel Canning appear from other prisons, fidgeting in their seats. In contrast, Kavanagh sits bolt upright, with arms folded across his chest, and listens intently in an interview room with bathroom blue walls. As a female prison guard nips in and out of Kavanagh's interview room, the exasperated judge, Justice Martin Levitt, stops proceedings to scold, "We'll just wait for Belmarsh to stop coming in and out of the room because it's interrupting us yet again." Over the morning, there are various arguments set out by wigged barristers who call each other "my learned friend" in clipped British accents. But the outcome is clear. Kavanagh has 3 months to pay back more than €1.26 million in criminal assets or face another 12 years in prison. One by one, the court strips him of his assets: luxury watches, designer clothes, equity in a Majorcan property, rental income, cash seized by police, and even the cost of a family holiday to Cancun. And the biggest blow, his half share of a fortified Tamworth mansion, the marble-floored stronghold where he reigned like an Italian mob boss in the English Midlands. The court was told his wife, Joanne Byrne, the sister of David Byrne, who was murdered in the Regency, had not responded to a court notice. Kavanagh, sitting at a wooden desk in Belmarsh, betrays no sign of emotion at the prospect of losing the family home. But behind that blank stare is a man who once weaponised fear with precision. Police wiretaps revealed a mobster, almost scientific, in his obsession with torture, casually calculating exactly how much pain he could inflict, terrifying men into loyalty without paralysing them completely. Britain's National Crime Agency finally brought him down, jailing him for 26 years. Now, here in Ipswich Crown Court, they're dismantling what's left of his empire. And then, one final twist. It appears that Bomber couldn't do his time. In a scheme that wouldn't have been out of place in a Guy Ritchie movie, Kavanagh tried to shave some time off his 21-year sentence for drug smuggling by orchestrating a plot from behind bars. Hoping to dupe authorities into handing him a lighter sentence, he tried to lead the National Crime Agency officers to a weapons stash. Instead, he was rumbled and slapped with another 6 years. We spoke to some of the NCA officers who were involved in taking Bomber down, including one who was tasked with following the money. It was a job that took him across international borders.
This particular case, I would say, was complex because we had overseas assets in Ireland and in Spain, Lanzarote, and there was also the inquiries when pulling together the investigation as well. Because there was Dutch hauliers involved. There was drugs were coming in, say, from the Netherlands. They were coming in from Spain. So there was quite a lot of international partners we were involved with when we were pulling this together. So the actual value of the drugs, which was agreed on between the prosecution and defence, eventually was 10,470,833, and that was for 3,750,833 of cannabis and 6,720,000 pounds worth of cocaine. The benefit figure for Thomas, with all the other assets involved, we agreed on just over 12 million of benefit from his criminality. And we started off somewhere around 15, 16 million. So we've come down about 4 million. And the majority of that is the difference in the value of the drugs. Knowing the significance of him, it was really great result to get him convicted and now to get the confiscation order against him as well and have that benefit hanging over him.
Officers who went through the rows of designer gear in Bomber's gated mansion were astonished at the sheer scale of luxury goods. The drug proceeds had been splurged on luxury and security in almost equal measure. The place was sealed, reinforced doors, bulletproof glass, and cameras covering every approach. Inside was a display of wealth that would rival that of Imelda Marcos. Money was lavished on Moncler jackets, a shoe collection worthy of a Saudi princess, and a watch collection fit for a Premier League dressing room. The list goes on. 30 pairs of identical Armani jeans, Gucci labels, a collection of handbags that a Kardashian would be proud of. This was how the cartel's profits were laundered, through spending sprees and rolls of cash handed across the shop counters in Harrods. The definition of ill-gotten gains was hanging in wardrobes in his luxury mansion in Tamworth. Cartel members know the risk of peddling drugs across international borders, but when officers start rifling through their six-figure wardrobes, confiscating their luxury watches and handbag collections, it does hit a nerve.
A lot of criminals are quite happy, getting imprisoned for the crime is part of the job. But when you actually say, now we're going to take all your assets, that's when it gets personal, because that's the reason they're committing crime, is for their lifestyle. That is their job. And we are then taking it all away or getting an order to take it away. So that's when it can get quite personal.
The court's inventory of Bomber's lavish spending gave an inkling into just how far removed he'd become from the day-to-day drug trade. He oversaw the delegation of smuggling routes, of finance and of enforcement to trusted lieutenants. The proceedings in Ipswich Crown Court didn't just mark the fall of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh's personal empire, they also signalled something far bigger. Bomber's collapse marks the first true fracture in what had long looked like an impenetrable underworld machine. The cartel's chief strategist, the man who kept its international supply lines running smoothly, had finally been taken down. Seen as untouchable for years, his sentence for importing tens of millions of pounds of drugs was a major shot across the bow of the Kinahan cartel. And just 2 weeks after Kavanagh's sentencing, the United States raised the stakes.
And so today, the United States Department of State is pleased to announce a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to the financial disruption of the KTCO or the arrest and convictions of its leaders, Christopher Vincent Kinahan, Daniel Joseph Kinahan, and Christopher Kinahan Jr.
You've been listening to an extract from our 9-part series, The Science of Fear, about the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. To listen to all 9 parts, log on to crimeworld.com and hit subscribe.